Get behind me, Satan. Sounds like a Saturday Night Live sketch, doesn't it? Isn't that special? When Jesus said to Peter, Peter, you need to get behind me, he wasn't saying, get behind me, Satan, as if Peter had all of a sudden turned into some kind of a supernatural, demonic being that needed to play follow the leader or something like this. He was saying to Peter, Peter, you've decided to put your concerns, your thoughts, your expectations on things that aren't godly. In fact, Peter decided that he would tell Jesus what to do, and that Jesus should worry about, what's comfortable and what's easy, and not really what's godly or divine or right. And so when Jesus said to Peter, Peter, get behind me, he was saying, stop following your way, Peter, and follow my way. And this is something we should all just recognize that we do, right? We all decide to follow our way. And when we decide to do that, when we decide to follow a way that isn't God's way, who knows what God we're following then? And that's exactly what Jesus was trying to tell us, that we do this. All of us do this. And I want to take a second, I want to point out to you that I do this. That all leaders do this, as a matter of fact. The fact that I've got, a special all black with a little white thing, that doesn't make me any less human than anybody else in the world, for that matter. And if you think for just 1 second that I'm perfect, this is a picture of my wife. She'll be hanging around the narthex after. She will dispel all of the myths that you have about me. She will give you the inside scoop. Because look, if you think that I won't fail you, you're in for a surprise. I will fail you. If I haven't failed you yet, it's going to happen. I will fail God. I have already failed Him. I will fail Him in the future. It's going to happen. I don't try to be loud. I try to be excellent. I try to shoot for above the bar. I try to follow God in all of His ways, but I end up following my own ways. I have been Satan. That might not be something you think that your pastor should be saying to you, but if you think that I am holy or perfect or walk on water or something like that, we need to break that right now, because that is not me. That is not any leader that has ever existed, with the exception of one. Okay, so speaking of leaders, I'm going to transition over to Joel Osteen. Some of you may know Joel Osteen. He's the pastor of a mega congregation in Houston. If you are on Facebook, then I'm sure that you are having conversations about him. He is blown up all over Facebook. Now, Facebook is known for rational, nuanced, subtle conversations of well thought out. Why y'all laughing? Did I miss something? No, of course, nobody pays attention to what anybody else says on Facebook unless you're what I'm saying. And if you're not what I'm saying, then I'm going to shoot right back at you. That's what we do on Facebook, is we don't have any kind of reasonable discourse. All right, Joel Osteen, a leader of Christian congregation, caught a lot of flack because his mega congregation, which holds around 15,000 people, I've heard numbers up to 17,000, whatever, it's in the tens of thousands of people, wasn't open during the flooding in Houston. It was open to give some resources, but as a safe place, a safe harbor for people in the area, it didn't happen that he was open. Eventually, he did open his church, and he allows, and there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 people in a church that holds 15,000. And I want to put that in perspective. If Crossroad decided that we needed to be a safe haven, a refuge, we would hold around 300 people. Okay, so you can see the level of commitment that's going on there, and that's why people kind of got on to him about that, because maybe he shouldn't have been doing that. But I want to give you another perspective as a leader. I want to give you an insight to maybe what's going on in his world. Obviously, I haven't talked to Joel Osteen. He and I have never talked. I actually haven't even asked him for coffee, so I don't know. Maybe he would go and get some with me. But as a leader, I understand something that maybe y'all don't understand, which is people are dirty. Y'all dirty. Dirty. And if you're in a hurricane, come on, we are muddy. We are stinky. We are bringing our animals and our kids, and there might not be enough diapers to go around, right? And if he were to open up his congregation, it would get dirty. I mean, dirty. And if you are, and Joel Osteen is, the steward of a church, that goes through your brain. Hey, what kind of things are going to happen to my building if I let everybody into it? It's going to get gross. It's going to get bad. man, the stink is going to be there for a while. We might not be able to worship on Sunday without holding our nose. Okay, well, that's a reality, but that's what I would call a cross to bear. That if you've decided that your carpet is more important than Christ, maybe your priorities aren't in the right order. And when I look at a congregation of tens of thousands of people, I got to think that it might be sufficient enough, right? The income might be sufficient enough to replace whatever got broken, to repair whatever needs to be repaired, or to clean whatever got soiled. All right, another one that maybe you hadn't thought about. You know, I think sometimes people think that church just happens. It just magically happens, like Jesus waves his magical wand and then, I don't know, pixie dust falls and then everything just happens. It doesn't. Our congregation survives and exists because people decide to put themselves out, right? When the offering plate comes through, we give an offering so that the lights can stay on, so that we have air conditioning, so that we have a building. It takes people to do that. And if you don't put money in the offering plate, then somebody else has to put your share in, has to hold your share up. Well, okay, our congregation is no different than Joel Osteen's congregation. If he were to open up his building, he would need people to do their part, which means he would have to ask people to brave the weather, brave the floods, leave their family, to go to that congregation to serve. That's a big ask. As a pastor, I would have a lot of trepidation asking members of my congregation to leave their families, go into the hurricane to man the church. That's a big and a dangerous thing. That's not something you just take lightly. That's not something you just shoot from the hip about. And that's something that Joel Osteen had to pay attention, because if he said come, I got to believe that there would be people who would come. And if something happened to them, that would be on his shoulders. That would be a real thing. That would be a difficult thing. In fact, there was a police officer who did do that. The county asked him to come, and he came, and he ended up giving his life because the floodwaters took him and his car away, and he drowned. So it's not like it wasn't a reality. It's a reality. But maybe at some point you have to say, come. And you have to say, look, this is how we bear each other's burdens. To bear a cross for someone doesn't mean to do things that are easy. It means to do things that are hard. And maybe you wouldn't want to leave your family, but if this is the thing that God is calling you to do, and you own a 4x4 vehicle, and you think that you can get there, maybe that's what you should do. Maybe that's what Joel Osteen should have done. I think Monday morning pastoring, quarterbacking, is really easy when we're not in the flood, when we're here. You know, but the biggest one is, and this is the one. He said he was waiting for the civil authorities to ask him. He actually made like the media rounds. He went out to all the little media things. He was on the news, he was on the radio, the talk shows, and he said over and over and over, well, I was waiting for the civil authorities to tell me that I should open my place. I was following their lead. And this is the one, Joel. This is the one I can't get with. Because if he's waiting for the civil authorities to tell him what to do, then he's following the wrong authority. He was right. His parking garage, his basement was flooding and was on the verge of flooding. But how powerful would it have been if in the middle of the storm, he opened up his facility and he said, look, the church is not a perfect place. We've got flooding in our basement, but you know what? Come on in. We've got rafters. Our seats go all the way up to the nosebleed. You can find a safe haven here. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's better than what you got. Come on. And in the middle of the storm, if he opened his place, it would have been truly a light. It would have been a safe haven. It would have been everything the church is supposed to be, literally in the middle of a storm. And that's the one. That's the one that I look at Joel and I say, Joel, who are you following? At that moment, when all chaos happened and that storm hit, who did you follow? Now look, I want to be really clear about something. God did not send a storm to Houston. God did not send a storm to Houston. That storm that hit Houston was not sent by God, but it could still be used by God. He could have used Joel Osteen and that congregation to show the world what a Christian congregation looks like. Joel Osteen could have said, I don't need civil authorities to tell me what to do. I know who I follow, and my God will protect us. He has already given us so much, we're going to give back. How many of us need to see Christ in the midst of our storms? And there, in the midst of the Houston storm, in the middle of the Hurricane Harvey, Joel Osteen could have been God's great lighthouse, but he failed. Just in case you thought Joel Osteen was a saint, he failed his people. God will forgive him. Thanks be to God. Now look, it happens all the time that we have to hold up each other. And I and you and everybody else in this congregation, whether you know it or not, has held up Joel Osteen's side. We have. Maybe you don't know this. Do you know we have a fantasy football league? The church has a fantasy football league. I bet you didn't even know that. We do. We do. The wrong people win it every year, but that is so that we can bless them and continue to pray for them. Where's Peter? Yeah, Peter. Okay, but what you don't know is in this fantasy football league, we take dues, right? We take dues, and the first place gets a prize. The second place gets a prize. The third place gets their dues back. But that doesn't take up all of the money. We take a good portion, a nice hunk of that from the fantasy football league, and we just give it to the church. We just put it aside. And then what happened over the last year is I have this cash in hand, and without a doubt, somebody comes to the church looking for a handout. Now, the little rascal in me comes out whenever somebody looks for a handout, and I say, well, okay, who's your pastor? Where's your church? Where's your congregation? Aren't you supposed to be a part of somebody so that when the flood waters come into your world, you can go somewhere? How come you're not going there? And when they say, well, I do pay attention to Joel Osteen on television, I ask them, the little rascal in me asks them, well, have you called Joel? You laugh because it's ridiculous. Why would anybody even think about calling Joel? But this is the reality, that he's on television giving a great message, fine message, but that's not church. That's just a message. It's a devotion. It's not worship. And when someone comes to me and they say, I need help because I'm in this great, horrible situation, and I say, well, did you call Joel? I know it's flippant. I know I'm being flippant, but I'm being real. That's your congregation. There's your pastor. Where is he to help you? And he's nowhere. So the fantasy football team is there. And what happens is I don't give out handouts. I seldom give out straight cash. But if somebody says to me, hey, you know what? I need gas so I can keep looking for a job. I hop in their car and we go to BP and I fill up their gas tank with the cash in my pocket. And that gives us a ride up, and maybe I buy a coffee on the way back, and we have a conversation. Hey, how come you don't have a job? Maybe I can help you. I don't want to be flippant here, but I think I've given more jobs to Joel Osteen's congregation than he has. Or you know what happens is we have a conversation, we have a talk, we get a burger, and you know what I find out? Sometimes they just need encouragement. Sometimes don't we just need encouragement? Don't we just need somebody to be there to say, you know what? You're doing the good thing. You're on the good road. It just sucks right now. Keep at it. You'll get there. Or sometimes I got to play pastor. And I got to say, hey, you know what? You wouldn't be coming asking me for money if you hadn't gambled it away. If you hadn't drank it away, you wouldn't need to be talking to me right now. I know that's not what you want to hear. What you want to hear is, here's $40, go have a great day. But you know what? You didn't do that. You came to me, and so I gotta hold up the mirror so you can see who you are. It didn't happen on accident. It happens because of a community, because we're in relationship. Because when somebody comes to me, the fantasy football team has empowered us, this congregation, and me to encounter those people who are looking for a handout, and maybe we can do some good from those conversations. When those mothers come to me and they say, hey, I need food for my babies, and they have the babies in the car with them, I can say, let's go to the grocery store. I'll make sure you have groceries. And that mother can get groceries. And maybe in doing that and going the extra mile and bearing that burden with her, she might see there are people who love her. That God is active in this world, and He's not just a couple dollars. He's a hand and an arm and a prayer. This is why we get into small groups. Small groups isn't just a program that's going on in the congregation, right? We've got fantasy football, we've got God's Garden, we've got the soup kitchen, we've got quilters, we've got all these different programs going on in the church. You should be a part of them. They're great, they're wonderful, they're life-changing. Small groups is not a program. It's not just something else we're doing so that maybe you can be a part of something. Small groups is who we are. It's how God intended the church to be, so that we could be in relation with each other. Because I can't help you if you don't tell me that you need. And the reality is, I might never see that. But if you're in your small group and you call because you're late, or you can't make it on a day because all of a sudden your work is overwhelming you and you don't have any other options, you know what? Your small group's going to see that, they're going to pay attention to that, and they're going to be able to help you. Or vice versa, you will see that in somebody else. When I get calls, Ashley and I, we have a shorthand. I'll call her up and I'll say, Ashley, I need a to-go dish. And she makes this taco thing that I've never had in my entire life. She's made it like 8 times for different people from different small groups, and I've never ate it once. Because it's so quick and easy to make. I can say to her, Ashley, I need you to make this. And she can take the 3 kids and go to the grocery store. She knows just what to buy. I don't know. She waves a magic wand and I come and pick it up. And then I take it to whoever just had a baby, or whoever just had a loss. Or if something broke in their world, right, like a relationship or maybe a tire axle, I can bring it to them. I've picked up kids from small groups. I have prayed with people in small groups. I have sat with families in hospitals because of small groups. That is how we do. And the reason I do those things isn't just because I'm a pastor, it's because I'm human. Because that's how God intended us to be in each other's lives, to bear each other's burdens. You have strengths. You have abilities that God has given you that you can use for His good, but I am never going to know them because this group is too big for us to know. I can't know them. And I have abilities. I'm a big mouth. I can talk all day. I can use my gift for you. How can you use your gift for me? Well, I might never know that you can do that. But in a small group, you can't hide. You will be known and you will be loved. And those abilities that God gave you, they will rise up. And when the floods of people's lives come up, you will be there to help protect. And you will be there to be protected. The value of being in a small group is that we get to help each other. And this wasn't lost on Paul. This is what Paul says in Romans 12:16. We've been going through Romans. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but this is the very next verse. He said, we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. Prophecy in proportion to faith. Ministry in ministering. The teacher in teaching. The exhorter in exhortation. The giver in generosity. The leader in diligence. The compassionate in cheerfulness. Paul's saying, he's given a short list here. Look, everybody has a gift. Everybody has something that you can use. This is what Jesus says that you should do with your gift. For what will it profit you if you gain the whole world but lose your life? If you've been given this gift and you're able to do amazing things with it, but you never share it, then who cares? This is what the very next verse says. God has given you many gifts. Be sure to use them to make lots of money. Oh, wait, no, that's not what he said. Okay, but that's what Jesus is saying, and that's what Paul's saying. He said, don't use them for your own purpose. Use them to love one another with mutual affection. God has called you to be something bigger. God has called you to be a part of something huge. And if we spend our lives trying to figure out how we can be more and more selfish, that's good for nobody, not even ourselves. God has brought you into this world that you might be a benefit for others and that together we might change the world, because the world has storms, literal and metaphorical. And we can be the light. You need to be in a small group. It's just that simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, what are you saying to yourself? Maybe you're saying to yourself the things that Joel Osteen has said to himself. I don't want to get together with people. It's dirty. People are messing with my life. I've got everything in nice, neat orders, and if I got in a small group with somebody, these people, they would mess with my world. Yep. They will. They will. They're going to get in your life, these people, and you're going to get into their life in the midst of the storm. Oh, I'm too busy. I can't do it. Oh, there's just so much going on. The storm is just raging. I'm up to my eyeballs. There's nothing I can do. You know what? Do it anyway. That's what it means to bear the cross. The cross was not a Barcalounger. It was not sold, and is still to this day, to my knowledge, not sold in Lazy Boy. You cannot sit in a cross and fall asleep. You get on a cross, and you sacrifice yourself and die. That's what it means to bear the cross. It means something's got to die. And if you live your life for you, something in your life has to die so that you might live for others and have true life. You might have to give your life in order to find it. That's what Jesus just said to us. I don't need small groups. I can follow my own day. I can do what I want, and the world around me will tell me what I need to do, and then I'll follow those things. Those are the things I should follow. Because the things that are around me that I put in my world, those are the most important things, and that's the one that I'm going to follow, whatever that is. And then if I have time left over, then I'm going to do with what Jesus said. Well, that's what Joel Osteen said too. And if you think I don't say that, you're lying. I say that I follow all the things in my life. I have a wife, I have kids, I have hobbies, I have all kinds of things that I like to do. We can all follow the wrong God, but there is yet only one way. There's only one God, and His is the only and the best way. And He has said from the very beginning that we are to be the church. The church looks like this. It looks like large group worship. It looks like small group devotion. It's not just an idea. It is the way. It's not just a program. It is how we are meant to be, to follow God, to invite people into our lives to be transformed from sinner to saint. That we might be in the midst of everyone's storm of life, their lighthouse and their refuge. Welcome God into your life and be transformed.